here's the main layout of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about building and having a team. Also, Josh's recommendations on format, the framework he uses to put together his kids' churches, and also striking a good balance because kids' church is supposed to be fun, but it's not just about entertainment. So we're going to have Josh sound off on that as well, and then his tips on preparing for success. So with that, starting out, Josh, as we're waiting for people to enter info into the poll, let's talk about building a team. It'd be great if you can first just talk about kind of what your setup is like to give people an idea of what your team looks like.
Definitely. Well, first of all, James, thank you so much for allowing me to be on this webinar tonight. This is really cool. I'm used to doing podcasts and audio, so we got some video going on, so I actually had to do my hair tonight. And I want to first apologize. I do not live in a cave. I know it looks like I do. And I know I'm a kids pastor and all, but I can afford more than, one light bulb. But this is just my office lighting that's going on. But again, it's an honor to be here. To kind of just give you just kind of a synopsis of what we do, I'm a kids pastor in Connecticut. And I know many of you feel sorry for me for that, especially as James sits in sunny California right now, but that's all right. What we do is we do a big kids church every Sunday morning. We have a one service Sunday, so we're heathens over here. We have only one service on Sundays, and we do a big kids church. The name of our kids ministry is called Kids Rock, and the kids church is Kids Rock Live. So every Sunday at 10 o'clock, we have a high octane, just really just energy, just focused kids church, and that is for first through sixth graders. That's Kids Rock Live. And as that's going on, we also have a separate kids church. Also, it's more of they also do kind of a station format too, but they're doing something for the pre-K and K classes. And then, of course, we have nursery. So as far as the basic kind of skeleton, that's kind of how we divide it up. And we do that every Sunday. And then our midweek services are on Tuesday. And that's where we have kind of our more traditional Sunday school classes, and we break it up 2 grades at a time. And so that's kind of the balance that we have, where every week, they have more of the one-on-one time ratio with teachers during Tuesday, and then we hit more of the corporate aspect where kids worship corporately and together on Sunday. And that's kind of the aim that we go for right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Josh, my apologies on not properly introducing you. So Josh Combs, I've known Josh Combs from. Josh, you may know Josh, some of you, from an awesome podcast that he does, the Kinetic Podcast, and also perhaps he's come to your church because he has been a children's evangelist for how long, Josh?
Full time I was an evangelist for 3 years, and then probably around 8 or 9 total that I traveled. Yeah. So and then I finally settled down, and got my wits about me. No, I'm just kidding. They were great years. Obviously I still do, but not as much as usual. But yeah, it was about 3 years full time that I hit it pretty hard.
Uh-huh. So I wanted Josh specifically on this webinar because of the fact that his experience as a children's evangelist and also now his experience as a children's pastor, having both of these things together, I thought was something unique and important because of the fact that sometimes when I'm having conversations with people about kids' churches, they'll say, well, I don't know if that would work from my area. So I thought it was important for us to have somebody who is also a children's evangelist who has tried many different things across many different areas, and that may be something that comes up in conversation today, Josh. So, that's something that I think is going to be great for us to get into. So, Josh, thank you for the general layout of how you guys run things right now. I thought it was really interesting with how you go about having your team engaged and being able to put together your Sunday morning schedule. So if you could walk through that, maybe let's head into the part first of how you have your format, and that'll dovetail into who plays what role in your services?
Definitely, definitely. So, I'm a big believer in changing things up. We live in a commercial generation where,
Mm-hmm.
kids, their attention span, is is so quick. And science tells us that, as a kid gets older, their attention span gets wider. Now, I know sometimes it feels like their attention span is getting shorter, but their attention span is getting wider. And so when you have a kids church of, for example, we do something where we have first through sixth graders, you have a whole plethora of attention spans. You have a whole combination, all those education uh, uh, majors out there. You have all the multiple intelligences, all the learning styles. And so I'm a big believer in just really just changing it up on a regular basis and having one message or one point that you come across, but you teach it in different ways. And so whether it be through an action song, whether it be through an object lesson or a game or a small group or the main lesson, I'm a big believer in kind of, teaching the same thing in different ways. And so that way you're trying to reach all these different, styles. Because, again, you're not going to try to make it so obvious where you're like, okay, now that we've had the visual lesson, now it's time for the intrapersonal lesson, and you're not going to do all that. But you can engage kids in different ways where, different styles that they have, where you might have one child that a small group setting for them maybe is, more effective than, watching an object lesson. And so basically what we like to do is with our kids' church, I like to follow what's called the funnel effect. And so a funnel, we all know, starts out wide, right, and it narrows down. And so the first level of the funnel up top here, it's very broad, it's very wide, there's not a lot of focus. This is called engage, where we engage the kids, we engage their attention. My big thing is I believe that the first 3 minutes that a kid walks into your kids' church is vital, because here's what we have to ask ourselves: when a child walks into our kids' church, when a student walks into our program, what kind of atmosphere are they walking into? Are they walking into an environment that has been prepared for them? Where they feel like they're welcomed, where they feel like that they're supposed to be there, or do they walk in an environment where teachers are walking around? Now, God, I know no one ever does this, but, teachers are walking around cutting stuff, getting crafts ready. I'm not saying anyone ever does that on Sunday morning. I'm just saying, what kind of environment are they walking into? Are they prepared? Is it a place to where that it's just kind of crazy and there's no structure? Mm-hmm. Or is it a place where kids' attention is focused? So we want to engage their attention. I'm a big fan in countdowns. There's all kinds of awesome resources out there that you can, purchase a very inexpensive countdown. There's interactive countdowns out there. And so, again, that's something I always like to start a service with. We got just a kick-in countdown. The music's popping. We get some lights going, and we start with that focus. And so we usually start with action songs. I'm a big believer in action songs. I know maybe not a lot of people, that's their forte. And you have to do what's right for you and what fits for you. But I know, like what you said, James, just traveling across, the country, the privilege that I've had to travel to many churches. I know for me, action songs are a great icebreaker. I'm not one of these super talented guys that can juggle and blow water out of his ear like Lloyd Squires. I can't do any of that. But for me, starting a service where you have all these kids and no one knows who I am, and just starting off with a wacky, Toby Mac song or just some wacky song, there might not be a spiritual focus to it, but again, I'm engaging. I'm starting at the top of the funnel. I'm starting off just doing something crazy, something wacky, and again, it doesn't have to be an action song. You can start off your kids' church with a game. You can start off with some kind of just crazy activity, or if you have a mascot or someone in a uniform, have them come out, whatever it is. It's important those first few minutes of that service to grab their attention, because here's what happens: if you don't grab their attention in the very beginning, what's going to happen is you're going to spend the rest of your service trying to get their attention that you should have had in the very beginning. And so it's either one, that you can grab their attention from the very start and build upon that, or you can try to get their attention throughout the service, and you're almost like trying to chase, it's like a dog trying to chase a car. It's going to be a disaster. So I'm a big believer in first engaging. And then as the funnel narrows, the step number 2, that we start to focus a little bit more, we start to have our attention kind of up front a little bit more. And so what I like to do is I like to usually go from an action song to a game to an object lesson, because now they've gone from corporately worshiping, right, corporately playing a game, corporately interacting with each other. Now all their attention is now up front, and it's a little more focused, it's a little more narrow. And so this second stage of the funnel is called deliver. This is where we deliver our message. And this again goes with whatever lesson you teach. And so again, it doesn't mean I'm not going to use humor. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to have fun with them. That from here on out, it's extremely boring. But this is the part of the funnel where now we deliver the message. And again, that's what's awesome about kids ministry. You can be extremely creative. There's all kinds of awesome ways that you can deliver the word. Myself personally, I'm a big believer in improv Bible stories. I love to do improv Bible stories, act out a Bible story. Kids love it, and it brings it to life. And so the third stage, so the first one's engage, you delivered, and now as the funnel narrows, the third stage is challenge. Now we want to challenge them to act out or to commit on what they've just heard. And usually, especially in a kids' church setting, this would have to do with the altar call. And so we end with an altar call. And we end with a prayer. And again, we do a kids church every single Sunday, so I try to be sensitive. Our team, we're sensitive to the Spirit. There might be a time where, the kids, we're not going to have a blown out altar call, maybe that Sunday, but we say a prayer and we just kind of spend some time reflecting on what we just heard. And then there are Sundays, where God wants to move, and we have children, that are filled with the Holy Ghost. And so, again, that's all being sensitive to the Spirit of God. And so just to recap, we engage, we deliver, and then we challenge. Mm-hmm. And so that's a format that I always try to use. I'm a big believer, in having structure. And James, I think I told you this when we first talked, we all want to be out of the box. Everybody wants to be out of the box. We use that saying a lot. But in order to be out of the box, you have to have a box. And so what I believe is that God blesses structure. He blesses preparation. He blesses planning. I believe that when we put all of that together, that God blesses that. And then on top of that, we need to have the attitude that says, okay, God, we've prepared, we've planned, but if you want to come and mess it up in any second, you have the liberty to do that. And so that's kind of the philosophy, if you will, that we run our kids church on, is that basic structure. And again, we're going to always try to change things up, do things differently, not have the same order, but we always try to find that same format, that same those 3 points that we hit: engage, deliver, and challenge.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So I love that framework of engage, deliver, and challenge. And something that you and I talked about when we were chatting about the format of this is that there are some areas where you and I run kids' church a little bit differently. So in those areas, I'll chime in to just throw out some alternative ideas. But you ask me a year from now how I'm running kids' church, it may be totally different from how I'm running it right now.
Definitely.
But something that I'll throw out there first off is I loved what you said about the countdowns. I totally agree. I love starting with countdowns as well. Something that I'll mention to the community that's on here right now, if you don't know where to get countdowns, there's a couple ways that you can go about it. There's websites like Worship House Media. Just Google it. Look for countdowns. You're going to find a lot of them on there. An alternative to that is I actually made a video to explain how to use a tool called vDownloader. And you can look on YouTube and find a lot of countdowns that are just posted on there that people have made themselves. And you can actually use vDownloader to pull that off of YouTube right onto your computer and have some countdowns that you can go with. So my recommendation is get your team together, have everybody look through some of those different countdowns on YouTube, find a couple favorites, load them up. You'll easily have a new countdown for every single month if you divvy up the work. So, that's one way to go about that. Something else I want to throw in there is also, when it comes to format, a question that I hear, and one that me and my team have gone back and forth on, is the sequence of events. But one thing that I know you and I definitely agree on very much so is that things need to definitely be in a structure that keeps on moving along, right? Where, I espouse the whole like Sesame Street format of where it's, every 5 minutes almost, where something's moving, right? So a lot of times, instead of starting with an action song, which we've done before, and Josh, I really agree with you. I actually really like that as a good opener, and I'll probably start to actually work that into my things too. But I like starting off with, once the countdown goes as it's going, as Jillian, as you mentioned there, it might be a 5-minute countdown, 2-minute countdown. When it hits 0, as it's getting there, we're getting the kids pumped up, and we count down from, say, 20 or 10 all the way down to 0 together. We'll throw like beach balls and stuff like that, right? And then right when it hits 0, we're getting ready, we're getting everybody hyped up. We might do a wave or something fun like that, and then we'll kick into the first thing. As Josh mentioned, I really agree that it's important that everybody knows their role. Like typically, I'll have teachers that are normally working with me for those age groups. Like for example, for me, what we do is we actually have services for different age groups. So the first Sunday of the month, we'll have 2 through 5-year-olds kids church, which we just call Sing and Pray Church. Then second week of the month, we have 6 through 9-year-olds kids church. And then the third week of the month, we have what we call mid-school, which is for 10 and up. All right, so across each of those formats, it's still a pretty similar format of you start with a countdown, then you go into some type of crowd breaker, something fun. And a tip that I want to throw out there is, and Josh, this will be great for you to talk about with how you go about things, because I really liked what you were saying about just how you put your lessons together. So we'll have to hop into that next. But I'll typically work with, for example, my Sunday school teachers that teach the 6 and 7-year-olds class and the 8 and 9-year-olds class. And what I'll do is I'll give them an idea, if it's me that's doing the teaching / preaching, what the main theme is. And they'll key in their game to that, right? So one team might take on one game, another team will take on another game. We'll have something sandwiched in between, so we'll go game, something in between, game. And each of the games, I challenge the teachers to basically have about a minute or 2 to teach a micro lesson that ties in with the overall idea. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cue everything up so that it's game, some other intermediate crowd breaker, game, then we kick into worship, and then that flows in to the actual lesson itself. But that fits into exactly what Josh said with his framework, right? It's still back to, the higher level engaging, then you're actually delivering, and then you're moving into the actual challenge phase of an altar call or whatever thing you're doing. So Josh, I really love that framework that you have. I've just never thought of it as that kind of framework, but absolutely.
Definitely. That's awesome.
So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's close the poll here quickly, and let's take a look at what the results are. So in our results, these live results tell us that there is 29% of the audience today that hasn't actually started a kids' church yet. So that's good to know. There's nobody that does it once a quarter. 29% do it once a month. Wow, there is a surprising amount of people that do it once a week. I'm actually very surprised by that. Okay, so we'll have another poll coming up in just a little bit. And that might give us some other insights of how you all are running things. So you'll see another poll come up in just a little bit, just so that we have an understanding of, do you do only kids church? Because there are some churches that do only kids church, no Sunday school. Some that do only Sunday school and haven't started with kids church yet, or you do both. So that's what the next poll is about. And while you're filling that out, we'll go ahead and dive into the next segment. So Josh, maybe you can talk about just some of the other tips when it comes to actually creating, I don't know if I want to call it like the lesson plan for the day, right? How you coordinate the team.
Definitely. Well, number one, like you said, coordinating the team. I just want to emphasize teamwork is huge, big, just massive in kids ministry. And if you're not sure how to spell kids ministry. It is TEAM. Just want to throw that out there. So for me, having a team is big, because here's the thing: a team, there's definitely several benefits of having a team, but one of the big ones for me is a team fills in the gaps for the leader. And so, for example, as a leader, as the kids pastor, there's a lot of things that maybe I'm able to do, but there's a lot of things that I can do that other people can be a lot better at. For example, I am not a decorator. If I were to decorate, a Sunday school room, I can envision it. I can try. But if you were to give me some, construction paper and crayons, and first of all, I just fail, because you don't even use construction paper and crayons to decorate a room. It would just look awful. It really would. A third grader could probably do a lot better than me. But my point is that if you have a team, just a well-faceted, passionate team, that really have their heart into kids ministry, you're going to find that they have talents that you don't have. And as a leader, if there's any kids pastors out there, number one, we need to be okay with that. I just wanted to say that as a leader, we don't need to do everything. We don't need to do even 90%, 80% of the things. I feel like as a kids pastor, the more that I can delegate to people, not for the reason that I don't want to do anything and just play Pac-Man all day, but the more that I can delegate to people, no one plays Pac-Man, just me. The more that I can delegate to people that can do better than I can is going to make a big difference, because there are things that I can try to do that is just simply, that other people are going to have better opinions about. They're going to have a better perspective on. And so, number one, I know I'm getting on a rabbit trail. It's very important to have a team. And so with the writing process, I involve my team. And so what I do is, for every month, this is strictly for the kids' church. For the Tuesday nights, we have a curriculum that they follow, that we buy and that the teachers follow. But for kids' church, we develop the curriculum in-house. And so what I do is, for every month, so for example, for February, I've written out an outline for each week, what the main story, what the main point is. It could be the prodigal son, 1 week, the next week it could be, Daniel in the lion's den, whatever that story is, whatever the point is, I outline that, and I have a team of 3 writers. And what I do is I send that out to my writers, and what they do is they write a lesson plan that evolves around that revolves around that idea and that main point. And so what they do is they give me an object lesson that goes with it, they give me a game that goes with it, and they give me 2 small group activities. Because what I didn't mention last time is that after our altar call, we break the kids up into 2 small groups. We do 1st through 3rd, and then 4th through 6th. And so that's another way that we kind of reemphasize and revisit the message that was just taught, was through the small groups. And so the writers, they come up with that lesson plan, and that's what we go by every week. Again, I'm not writing everything and teaching it. I have someone that does the object lesson. I have someone that does the game. I have someone that does our offering. We try to make offering fun and creative, and then I'm usually the one that teaches the lesson. And then, I'll do the action songs as well. But then with the small groups, we have small group leaders for that as well. And so it's very, important to get that process down to where, as a leader, it's very important to realize that we don't have to do everything, that we can multiply ourselves, and that we can empower other teachers, because that's going to make our team stronger. And in the end, that's going to make our kids' ministry stronger. And so with the writing process, with coming up with the lessons, I'm very big on that, with involving the team and having a team where it's a mutual project and not just one person that's directing it. And, and I try to make it open to them for suggestions and themes and things like that. And that's another thing too, is we do a different theme every quarter. And so starting back in September, we did a back to school theme. And again, I involved the team on that. We had a team that did the decorations, and they did an amazing job. They made these massive Sunday school or massive school supplies. We had a huge crayon box and a pencil. And then right now we have a space theme, and so we have a 8-foot rocket and a 6-foot astronaut on stage, and then we have like a massive backdrop of space, and so we try to make it fun and try to change it up. And with that theme, we try to write lessons that go in that go with that theme, and that can relate to the kids in a fun but yet powerful way. So with the writing process, with our lessons, that's kind of what we do right now with involving the team.
Okay, awesome. I see some very funny comments here about you having 3 writers, and I would agree with that. I have a godly jealousy of your of your having 3 writers. It's totally awesome. So for what I typically do, I'll brainstorm with the team or just research that I'm doing, and something that I take as a challenge from my conversations is I need to document stuff that we're doing better. But something I thought worth throwing in is, for those of you who have tried to do kids' church and you find yourself doing everything, I don't know if this happens to you, but when I don't feel prepared, I feel really bad delegating to people. And there's times that I've actually pretty much done a kids' church almost completely by myself when I have felt like I've been in those situations, and I try to avoid those kind of situations as much as humanly possible. And I want to throw in a couple reasons why. Right? One is with what Josh was saying, it's really important that we have structure, because kids are going to very quickly call shenanigans on our lack of preparedness. They are not fooled, right? And another thing is also, I think of everybody's voice as like vitamins. Each kid can only take so much, and then it's not useful anymore, right? So the more voices you actually have in your kids' church environment, the more you're actually going to be able to get stuff actually into their brains. So that's why for me, I like to make sure that each of the different people that are involved, whether they're starting the kickoff or they're actually teaching a micro lesson after their game, that it's all tied together. So by the time that I'm doing my lesson, I'm mostly just pulling the knot together, right? Everything else has kind of come into there, just because it seems like if you can get kids to pay attention and really, really pay attention to your lesson for anywhere more than 10 to 15 minutes, you're really stretching it. It gets really hard. At least that's what I find. So with the structure, if you can definitely fit in all those pieces where it aligns toward that crescendo at the end before the challenge, I think it's going to make your lives a lot easier. That's just personally what I find. Something that I thought was really interesting with what you said, Josh, and it seems like the people on this conversation definitely agree, is what you're doing with the small groups. So, let's just dive into that for just a quick minute.
Definitely.
So with the small groups, right? So you have teachers that are leading these small groups, and do they have like a guide in front of them? Because I'm guessing there are people that might be actually pretty interested in doing this. So I want to just give them some more concrete tips on how to implement something like that if they like it.
Definitely. So again, with the lesson plan, when I distribute the outline, the lesson plan to the writers, and then they include with their lesson small group activities that go along with the main idea of that day, with the main thought of that day. And so how we do it, we split it up into 2 groups. We have one group where it's 1st through 3rd graders, and the second group is 4th through 6th graders. And usually, each small group has a leader, as a teacher that's teaching, and then there's about 3 or 4 teachers that are with them, just kind of for crowd control, and just, if they want to split the group up even more, they're just kind of there to help. And one thing that's helped with us, and I know not everyone will be able to do this, but we did a crazy thing where we got rid of the chairs completely in our kids' church. We're actually, what we need to do is we're probably going to get like those circle IKEA rugs, that kids can sit on instead of chairs, because at times it can get a little chaotic without chairs. But personally, I love the idea of not having chairs. And again, it might not work for everybody, but it works for us. And the reason why, when we did that, is it really brings kind of a fluid and flexible nature to our kids' church. So like, for example, if the kids are sitting down after an action song, right, and we have a game, and we want to do this massive group game, usually most people don't have the room, that they're doing in their kids' church, to be able to take to have all the space where they can run around, behind the chairs or to the side. It usually just doesn't happen. So, instead of having to move all the chairs to the side and having to do all that commotion, with no chairs, they're able to stand up, and, again, they're able to go right into the object lesson and, or into the game in that case. And so, with that, we try to bring some structure to it, to where the kids know where they sit at on each side. The one group will sit here, the other group will sit here. And so, again, that helps us. And so at the end, after the lesson, with the small groups, again, because there's no chairs, they're able just to stand up and go and sit on opposite sides of the room, and they each sit in circles. And the teacher usually is sitting with them or sitting in the chair. And so, again, this is really about tailoring to the age group at this point, because now you've split it up where you have first through third, which is somewhat similar in their development and their understanding, and then 4 through 6, where you can be a little more abstract with things. And so usually the 4 through 6, graders, we start off everybody with snack, just to kind of calm them down, because they've been eyeing the goldfish in the back, for the past hour. I've been eyeing the goldfish for the past hour. So all the kids, they're in their group, and they start off, and usually with the 4 through 6th graders, usually their small group activity is more of discussions. The teacher might do an object lesson, with them to kind of reinforce the message, but usually they're doing a discussion. I actually got to sit in that small group last week, and we were talking about faith, and we were talking about, crazy faith. That was our message, having crazy faith, and just, that God can do anything. And it was pretty amazing to hear these 4th through 6th graders just open up about things that they had prayed for. We had one kid, who's in 6th grade, and he was talking about how when his baby brother was born, that it was scary. They weren't sure if his baby brother was going to make it, and he shared how he prayed and that God would protect him, and that God would be with his mom and be with his baby brother, and and it ended up where the pregnancy was great, and his baby brother is extremely healthy, and it's just a miracle. And we had another student just share, another thing about praying for, her parents who were going through a divorce, and how they ended up just, staying together. Just awesome stuff that they were able to share, in that element. And they were able to just kind of express. And again, that's the only time I'm a big fan of small groups, because, with the kids' church, usually, they're interacting, and they're going, nonstop. But the small groups really give you a chance to just kind of slow down and just kind of hear, what they think, and have them reflect on the message they just heard. And it's another part of the challenge segment that I was talking about. We engage, deliver, and challenge. The small group is a great way to challenge them, to say, okay, guys, let's talk about how we can take what we learned today and apply it. How can we have crazy faith this week? What are some situations right now that you can have faith about and believe in God about? So with that older small group, I would say if you're going to develop some kind of curriculum for that, again, I'm very much about empowering my teachers and empowering my small group leaders. So I reiterate them, and I beat it into the ground that, hey, curriculum, or whatever I give you, or whatever you get for a lesson plan, it is not written in stone. And the reason why I say that is I want teachers to not look at curriculum as something that it's like the 10 Commandments and they got to follow it to a T. It's not that at all. But curriculum should almost be a blueprint, or almost be a mold that we are sensitive to God, that we are sensitive to what these students need to hear, not necessarily what's on this paper, and we use it and we mold it with our styles and with our giftings, and to something that's unique that we can bring to the table. And so I always encourage my small group leaders, hey, if you want to do something crazy, if you want to take them outside, and do something, if you're talking about nature and God's creation or whatever, do it. Or if you want to have them do some kind of, object lesson that you've prepared, or watch a video, or, whatever it is, take those 10, 15, 20 minutes and really take that time to kind of have that one-on-one, quality time with those kids that you wouldn't have, in a normal kids church setting. And so that's kind of the purpose of the small groups. So that's the older small groups. And then the younger small group, the first to third graders, again, they're younger. And so we do a lot of more concrete things with them. Usually the small group leader will teach them an object lesson that was different than the other object lesson that they saw, but it's still tied in to the lesson, and then they might have a coloring page for them, or some kind of activity that they draw on or something like that. And again, like you said, James, it's so big about you need to over-prepare when it comes to kids ministry. And one of my favorite quotes is this: if you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And it's so true with kids ministry that you need to over-prepare. There's a lot of times, and I know I'm looking in the chat here, that a lot of people have, kids church that runs simultaneously with, service downstairs or service, in the sanctuary, and we do as well. And here's the thing, you never know if it's going to be an hour, you never know if it's going to be an hour and a half, you never know if it's going to be 2 hours. So be prepared. Have an extra game, have an extra video, have an extra object lesson, have an extra activity, get some more goldfish, whatever it is, prepare with that. Again, I'm sorry I'm getting on a rabbit trail, but with the small groups, that's our whole focus, is that we kind of give them ideas, we give them activities, and then we encourage the small group leaders to really take that and to make it their own. Make it a time to where kids look forward to if kids got to the point where they came to kids church not to hear me but to hear small group or to be in small group, I would be probably offended by that for a little bit, but. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's what I want. I want kids to have something like that where they look forward to sitting down and expressing their thoughts and really talking about the word, talking about the message that they heard, and being able to just do that on another level that you can't really do corporately. So that's kind of our purpose with small groups. That's our goal with that.
Okay, that's great. I'm actually a huge fan of small groups as well. I have not integrated into kids church, and this is actually coming as a really fun challenge for me now. My brain is totally cranking trying to figure out, it's like, okay, I really like this idea and how I'm going to move that into what we're doing as well. Something else I think is really interesting is what you're saying about the seating. We do seating like that for VBS, but I've never tried that for kids church before. So that's actually kind of interesting. Just throwing out here for everybody else, if you're using chairs, something that I have experimented with a lot over time is I'd go to junior camps and I'd see they'd have boys on one side, girls on the other side, right? And they'd have different configurations of where do the adults sit, right? Sometimes the adults are all the way around, sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes wherever, right? So in my experimentation, what I've come to is I feel like actually having boys and girls mixed together is a good thing in my opinion. And the reason for that is because I found just personally for the groups of kids that I've worked with, it seems like when I have boys and girls separated, I'll have the girls actually worshiping, and then I'll have the boys maybe kind of worshiping, right? They'll do like the action songs and stuff like that, or maybe even not, depending how tough a crowd we're dealing with. And then it's just not as much participation sometimes from one side or the other. Whereas if I kind of keep them mixed, somehow it keeps them on their toes a little more. The other thing is, typically when I have groups of chairs together, let's say I've got a row of 5 in this column with an aisle, right? And then another row of 5. Typically what I like to do is I specifically instruct the adults and other workers in the room that middle seat, if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across, number 3 is an adult seat. No child should be sitting in those seats. And so we always have somebody there to kind of have the crowd control, and also just not just from the negative perspective, but from the positive perspective as well, to be able to really encourage kids. If they seem like they need a little more encouragement for worship or something like that, there's somebody that's just right there. It's like, hey, how about let's clap right now? Do you understand why they're lifting their hands or things like that? That there's somebody very close to be able to quickly address those things and make sure that kids are feeling comfortable. Because for us,
do you mind if I add one thing to that, James?
Yeah, man, yeah. Go, no, please.
Yeah, that's because I'm going to forget about it if I don't. One thing that is so important to stress to your teachers, to your volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and this is one thing that I'm trying to work on with my volunteers. And again, volunteers, they don't mean, they don't mean anything by it. People that work in kids ministry usually are, they want to be there, their heart's in it. But one thing, like what you just said, is so important is that they need to be involved with the kids at all aspects. That means your volunteers shouldn't be sitting on the back wall, or sitting in the corner, or just kind of, just standing above them, just kind of waiting for the kid that's going to lash out, or, to whatever it is. But have your volunteers sitting next to them, being with them, worshiping with them. Like you just said, man, it's so important, clapping their hands with them, because here's the thing. What we do, kids are going to do about 50 or even less percent of that. So if I'm worshiping and I'm just kind of doing this and just kind of half-hearted into it, kids are going to be even less than that. And so, get involved, be right there with your kids. So that's all I want to say. That's key. Awesome, awesome point.
Great, great. Something else to just quickly dive into is with these things that we're offering, you may find different ways that you're going about stuff as well. But something that we talked about last time you and I specifically spoke was just the balance between having all this structure and having it being entertaining and still being completely yielded to God, right? Because at the end of the day, God's the main attraction for the show, right? It's like,
Right.
this is God's show. And I don't know if there's anything you want to sound off about that, with just thoughts on that. But I wanted to kind of give you some floor for that.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, and you know what? That's definitely a balance. That as kids ministers, we always just need to strive for. Because here's the thing, number one, we want something that kids look forward to. We want kids church to be a highlight of their week. We want it to be something that they just, they beg their parents to come to, every Sunday. And so with that, we get into things, that kids, that grab kids' attention. We get into things, that kids love: music, videos, lights. I see here puppets. And all of those things are awesome. All of those things are good. And for me, it's very important, I think, to have a rockin' kids church that's lively. I know we hate to use this word, but it's relevant. That really just speaks to kids, on their level. That they can laugh, that they can, have fun. But on the other side of that, what we need to understand is that what we do in kids church, whether it be the lights, whether it be the puppet stage or the puppet show, whether it be any skits that we do, whether it be any optical illusions that we do, any videos we play, here's what we always need to remember. What we do is not entertainment, it is connecting. Everything we do needs to have the underlying purpose of connecting with kids, connecting with them. And I just want to say this, and I know this might be blunt, but I just want to say this, is that if all we do at the end of the day in our kids' church and after kids go home, if all we have done is entertain them, and there's been no Spirit of God, there's been no liberty in the Holy Ghost, there's been no time for kids to connect, if all we do is entertain them, there's nothing that separates us from Chuck E. Cheese. There's nothing that separates us from Disney. There's nothing that separates us from what the rest of the world does. And so what we're doing is we're not competing with Disney. We're not competing with cartoons. We're not competing with SpongeBob. But what we're doing is we are just trying to connect with them on a way that grabs their attention. We're speaking their language is what we're doing. When we have puppets, when we put on a goofy costume, when we throw up a rubber chicken or whatever it is, we're speaking their language, but the ultimate end is to connect them to God. And so that's one thing I always try to stress to my volunteers, to my teachers, is that at the end of this thing needs to be fun. It needs to be energetic, but more importantly, it needs to be backed by prayer. It needs to be backed by fasting, and it needs to be backed by expectation that, hey, every single Sunday when these kids walk into the room, that it's not about us anymore. It's not about our problems. It's not about our grown-up, situations. It's not about us anymore, but it's about these kids. And it's because here's the thing: we don't know what our students are going through the week. We don't know what kind of home lives they have. We might have an idea, but we don't know what they deal with at school. We don't know what kind of spiritual forces they're facing. We don't know any of that. And so our kids' church could be the only time that they really have a chance to connect with God each and every week. That could be their only chance. And so we just need to always pray and just always have conviction with that God, let this not be entertainment. Let this not be a variety hour. Let this not just be a show. But Lord, let your Spirit be able to move and be able to impact. And so I would just say always pray that God gives us that balance between connecting and making a spiritual impact. And so, again, that's something that we just need to strive for, that kids have a chance, to be in the Spirit, that kids have a chance to have fun, but also, to connect to God. So.
Amen, man. I almost dare not add to it, but this is some thoughts I'm just going to throw in here quickly, which are that I absolutely echo what you say. You and I both believe that structure is really important, that we need to have everybody really on their game to know how to fit into the picture of what's trying to happen in service. But for all of your different ministries, I don't know if this is the case for you, but I know for our ministry, we go toe-to-toe with churches that have way bigger budgets than we have. They literally put kids on a bus and take them to Chuck E. Cheese and pay for the whole thing. I don't have a budget for that. I don't have a budget, right? So other than the Wang Foundation, there's no real budget for that type of stuff, right? And the big thing is, something that no one can compete with is the Holy Ghost. What I've done with the way I structure my service, the reason I do games and other stuff first is I kind of think I want to get the wiggles out of the way. I want to have them fired up, excited, and ready to go. But then when we hit into worship, it's like we kick it into another gear. And just something that I thought was worth throwing out to people is if you're running your kids' church and you're over the worship or you're over the preaching and the teaching, please remember sometimes adults need to be reminded to be plugged in. And sometimes, because Josh, what you said is so important. The kids are only probably going to do about 50% or less of what we're doing. And so it's absolutely critical in my mind that I make sure to remind regularly the adults as well. When we're singing, it's like, hey, every adult in here, I want you to really worship right now. Let's really worship, because it's just powerful when you feel that this is real worship, and these kids do not ignore that. When the adults in the room are really ushering the presence of God, these kids, whether they have felt it or not, it's so awesome seeing on their faces just that they don't even know what they're feeling, but they just feel so safe. Oftentimes they'll tell me, they just feel so safe. It just feels good. Right? And then they're just ready. They're ready when it comes time for the altar call, right? And also the important thing is then the adults are ready too to actually work with the kids, So it's just something that I encourage everybody to think about is those of you children's pastors, coordinators, directors, anybody that's running your kids' church, please remember, if you're running the show, remind people to be able to really have their minds fully focused on the spiritual aspect of things, because it sometimes, just as busy as we are, we don't want to miss that boat, because kids are very much counting on all of us to actually be playing our roles from a spiritual perspective to actually get that right. So with that, gosh, there's so much that we could talk about, Josh, when it comes to altar working and other things like that, but I see some great questions here, so I want to go ahead and tackle that. So let's maybe take the next 10 minutes and tackle that. And, if you feel up for it, we might do a bonus round of an extra 5 minutes. But otherwise, let's see what we can get through for the next 5 minutes here. So let's see. One of the questions that I saw that I think we can hit up right away is puppets. What do you think of puppets? Use them, don't use them, thoughts?
Personally, I don't use puppets. I'm not opposed to puppets. I think they can be a good tool to connect with kids, to engage with kids. And again, just like with anything else, I feel like with puppets, you need to have the underlying just purpose of why are we doing this? Are we doing it to kill time? Are we doing it just because, it makes kids laugh? Are we doing it to connect them? Is there a purpose behind the puppets? Are they singing a song that has to do with a lesson, or are they doing a skit that has to do with a lesson? So again, I think puppets are great. But I just like with anything else, if you're going to do puppets, I would say do it right and have people that really have a passion for it, because I know from what I've seen in traveling that, it makes a difference if you just have just some, regular Joe Blow go up there and just, or me, just, do some puppet, you really need to, it would be awful. It would be awful. So it's good to have someone who practices that, who's into it, and that's their passion, So that's what I would say. Don't have me do your puppets is what I'm saying. But yeah, I think puppets can be a great tool. I do.
I'll sound off on this quick. I think I don't personally use puppets for 6 through 9-year-olds anymore. We still use them for the 2 through 5-year-olds. And something else I'll throw in is we feel like it's a really cool ministerial opportunity for our, like 8 and up year olds to get to help out with the puppet stuff and prepare for that, and some adults to work with them, for them to treat it like a ministry. So we do it for that, but what I've personally found is, I don't know, it just seemed like the era of puppets has sort of passed a little bit for certain age groups, definitely beyond age 6. Just my personal opinion. It just seems like kids have just unfortunately matured too quick. It's kind of sad that they don't find it as fun anymore. But if you're going to use puppets, this is what I would say about that. I feel like if they're really little, just playing a soundtrack and doing the puppets, that can still fly. If you're doing puppets for 6-plus-year-olds, I would say it probably better be either a skit with the puppets where it's actual, like something's going on, or I think something that still works is if the puppet is talking to real people, so the puppet feels like a real person. And I think that can still work, but otherwise, I have personally really shied away from puppets. Something else is somebody was asking about the age range of your teachers. So, you want to maybe sound off on just, your thoughts on how old teachers normally are for your team, and your thoughts on age for teachers in general?
Definitely. We have a wide range of teachers. For our pre-K and K class, we have a lot of teenagers in the pre-K and K class that help out with that. I'm actually kind of jealous of them that they have so many teenagers. And then with our Kids Rock Live, main kids church, we have teenagers, but it also goes up. We have people in their late 50s. We have a guy, Brother Howard. He's an awesome guy. He's probably, I don't know, in his mid to late 50s, but man, he's got so much energy, and he loves the kids. He just loves being there with them. So we have a big range with that. And so the only thing I would say with that is don't dismiss your older volunteers. I know it can be easy to just think, well, sister so and so, she can't help, she can't connect. I really feel like a lot of these older saints that have a heart and a passion for kids ministry, they have a lot to offer. They have a lot of experience and wisdom that us younger people, I'm not getting younger, I'm getting older myself, but us that are younger, they have a lot to share with us, especially, and I know we all have them. There's one or two ladies that are in the church that's been teaching for 25, 30, 40 years, and there's a lot of wisdom you can gain from those people. But I would also say on the flip side of that is know where to place them as well. I'm not going to have, an older lady in their 60s do action songs with me, it's just not going to happen, but have her, someone like that would be awesome, in a small group setting, where she can kind of connect with the kids, the older kids, or, and kind of, take that wisdom and experience. So again, just like with anything else, have them, what are their strengths? What are their, what are kind of their areas that they excel at? Would they be good with an object lesson? Would they be good, with a game? Do they have that energy? And again, I would look past the age, but just look at where their passion and kind of where their style is, with those things, with kind of actually, practically placing them in kids' church settings. But I think I think it's great to have that wide range of ages, for sure.
Absolutely. So we don't have anybody teaching that's under 18 in our specific ministry, but we will have people that might be helping in our kids' churches as just people that are facilitating that might be, say, 16 and up, right? Now, something else that I would say is, with experience of people, what we do is, I mentioned that we do small groups, not for kids' church yet, though I really like the idea now that I've heard more about it, but we do small groups for our classrooms. And I think that's a great opportunity to be able to get people involved who aren't quite ready to be teachers and need to really absorb that more to be involved with small groups. So I'm just going to throw in some other plugs for small groups because just like what you're saying, Josh, I hugely believe in it because I think small groups are an opportunity for kids to really own the experience and really own the lessons because they have to talk about it. They're forced to think about it. And it also allows a lot more fine-tuning for the group leaders and the teachers and children's pastor and anybody else that's involved to be able to really understand what's in their heads. So it's not just one directional. We can actually have a better understanding of, is this getting through? Is this working? So
definitely.
Something else that I think a lot of people are curious about are just resources. So maybe we could take a minute and just sound off on any resources that you can think of that might be helpful to people who are trying to start out their kids' churches or, are just looking for more ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've been throwing a couple websites here over in the chat. Jessica just asked me about games, and one game website that I use is called the Source 4ym.com. I'm sure you used that before. That's a great site for games. And then I threw another website up here. I forget what it was for. So for me, I'm a big web guy, just like anybody else is nowadays. So I'm always looking for things, online. There's some great websites out there that kind of give you, great resources. There's one, I don't know the exact URL. I believe it's, let me check real quick. I believe it's Children's Ministry Deals.
Oh yeah.
So children's. Let me write it in the chat real quick. Yeah. If no one's been to this site. Cool website. I don't know who does this or who's behind it. I want to say maybe the North Point Church in Georgia. I'm not sure, but anyway, this is a really cool site. It's all digital curriculum, so everything they have is all downloadable. And what's cool is they have a lot of free stuff too. So I would highly recommend getting on the site, getting on their newsletter. They always send out free offers. They have right now I know they have a bunch of games. They have like 100 games that are free right now. You can download that are really cool. And some of their stuff can be a little kind of off the wall. They try to do lessons for holidays and things like that. But a lot of their stuff, again, curriculum to me, it's not written in stone. I like to take curriculum and just kind of morph it into my own style and kind of add my own twist to it. But that's a really cool site, Children's Ministry Deals. Another one is ministrytochildren.com. And I think that has a hyphen as well. Let's try that in. So that's another cool one. This is a kids ministry blog. Check for me, James. Make sure I got I think that's the right link. But anyway, this is a children's ministry blog that kids ministers kind of write ideas and just all kinds of cool stuff on there. Another one is Kidology. I know you said you use that, and that's a pretty cool one. So I try to follow some of these other guys. There's some kind of mainstream kids ministry guys out there that that necessarily aren't apostolic, but they have some really good ideas that we can. I know Ryan Frank is one. He's got a magazine called K Magazine. It's pretty cool. Oh, and also too, I'd highly recommend today subscribing to Group's Children's Ministry magazine. It's a great, great magazine. There's a lot of cool things in there. So just go to group. I think it's group.com, and you can look up their children's ministry magazine. And they have a lot of cool stuff. They have reviews of like music and movies that have come out, that are geared towards kids, things like that. They have some really cool in-depth articles, about recruiting volunteers, things like that. And then as far as a book I would recommend, there's a book called, I'm writing it right now, it's called The Eric Trap, and it's by Jim Weidman and some other guys. I would highly, highly recommend this book. This is a book that's geared towards kids ministers, or kids pastors, but anyone can really gain from this book. It's an amazing, amazing book, and it just really talks about the struggles that kids pastors face and kids ministers face, and so it's a really good one. And then one last book that I would recommend, and I want to get the title right. Hold on one second.
While you're doing that,
go ahead. I'm just gonna write it down.
Okay, perfect. So something else I'll throw out there. I don't know if you use only144.com. I think they're connected to Children's Ministry deals, and so they throw all kinds of cool deals out there. If you don't use them, you might want to subscribe. You might not buy everything. Probably won't want to, but they occasionally put out some really good stuff, and they put together some very cool bundles. So it's only 144. I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat as well. So only 144.
Yeah.
You ever go to CM Connect?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool.
So they're not apostolic, but there's so much stuff there. So there's definitely some interesting ideas that you might be able to get from there as well.
Yeah.
And there's also this really great podcast called the Kinetic Podcast. The guys that run it are pretty cool. So you might like checking it out. So I'm talking about Josh here. I have definitely found a wealth of information on that podcast. So seriously, I invite you guys to check it out. I'm going to go ahead and put that URL in here as well. Do yourselves a favor. You got yourself an iPhone. You'll be able to find it pretty easy to go subscribe to that stuff. Are you guys on iTunes now?
Yeah, we're on iTunes, and I figured out, because I'm an Apple geek, so I'm an Apple-stolic, as they say. But I have a friend who's, fortunately he's not saved yet, and he's an Android user. Anyway, I figured out that most Android apps, podcast apps on Android, they feed into, the general RSS feeds in iTunes. So if you have an Android, first of all, I'm going to be praying for you. Second of all, you can go ahead and just download any podcast app on Android and look up Kinetic Podcast, and you can get it on pretty much any podcast app, and also too on iTunes on your iPhone. And follow us, Kinetic Podcast, on Facebook. We post the podcast there, so you can listen to them right there on Facebook. And we have a website, and it's kind of under construction right now, but it's just a basic format for people who don't listen to it on their phone or don't have a mobile phone yet or whatever it might be. You can listen to it online. But yeah, it's just kind of a thing we do once a month. And we have two speakers that we highlight in kids ministry, and we just kind of pick their brain for half an hour. So it's been pretty cool.
Awesome. And also, with that, I think we're going to wrap up now.
Are you serious? Come on, man! It's so much fun. Round 2. More questions. Come on.
I know, man. We could go all night. So we'll definitely have to have you back again. There were some other areas I wanted to talk with you on, so we're going to have to collaborate. We'll come up with some other stuff for another thing. But for all those that you want to be able to keep up with what Josh is up to, so they would go to kickministries.com.
Yeah, so kickministries.com. That's my site that I had as a kids evangelist. That's just kind of just some stuff that I do, but I'm always on Facebook. I'm under Jumpin' Josh Combs. That's my kid's evangelist name, Jumpin' Josh Combs. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Joshua Combs. I'm just always posting something. Of course, Instagram, doing that. Mm-hmm. Man, this has been awesome, James. Thank you so much for doing this. And, man, I really appreciate the honor of having me on the webinar tonight. Really did.
Absolutely. Hey, the honor was mine, man. So I hope you all enjoyed this. We definitely want some feedback. So, hit us up in the emails, on the website itself. So if you're wondering, NextLevelKidmin.com, just to give you guys a preview of what we're actually trying to do there. First off, that's just a place to house a lot of these things. So we've got a YouTube channel going on right now. We have some stuff shooting through different social media channels. So you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. We are occasionally pushing stuff out through Instagram, not faithfully enough. But here's the idea. Basically, you'll notice that you can actually create a login there. So there's some testing that I still need to do. But what's going to be coming up in the very near future is the dream is we're actually going to be able to allow for you to be able to create groups right on Next Level Kidmin. The reason for this is because for me, I was finding I'd be able to congregate with a bunch of people perhaps on a Facebook group, but then there are people that are never on Facebook or don't even have an account, but they're on Google+. Okay, not very likely, but sometimes. Or they're only on Twitter, right? And it was just this disparateness. So the idea is we're trying to bring it all together. We want places where let's say it's just a group where people are just sharing 5-minute countdowns. And it's just like this big forum on 5-minute countdowns. Everybody posting their stuff. So we can create this huge archive of just all these different resources, or a group that is purely dedicated to object lessons. So, everybody, if you're in this forum, it's specifically to share object lessons and things like that. So you're going to be seeing that rolling out in the next little while. So stay tuned. If you aren't on the mailing list, please go ahead and hop in and register for our newsletter so we can keep you in the loop. But I just want to say again one more time, Josh, thank you so much for the time today. I learned a lot, man. I loved it, and it looks like the group that was on, we got some great feedback here, and there's some really funny comments here with people that are pretty excited about the content. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Really excited about hearing all the things that you're doing and the success in your ministry, and we will definitely have to have an encore presentation at some point.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it, man. And we're going to get you on our podcast, man. We're going to do it. So.
Hey, that'll be fun. All right. Cool, man.
All right, bro. Thank you, man. Thanks, everybody. It was an honor.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
We'll see you.
If you like this video, make sure to click subscribe so that you can stay in the loop for more Kidmin tips, tricks, and ideas. See you in the next video.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.